Good evening. This is the SSN CATV nightly news for the Terror System. I'm Lawrence Wren. The systems are abuzz about the upcoming wedding between Val Messer and Celia Carter, so tonight we take a look at the designers who've been selected to dress the bride and groom. Humans of the systems, this is Tide. Pull the veil from your eyes and see. Garan 2 was a developing world with a vast array of species. We say was, because they are no more. The Imperator and his core minions terraform the planet, killing everything to feed their insatiable greed. Pull the veil from your eyes and see for yourself. It turns out that Garan wasn't as uninhabited as first thought. Attempts to terraform this planet by a company with close links to the Imperator ultimately led to the destruction of a developing race. Questions were asked of how this was allowed to happen. Our race was not built on the mindless destruction of others. We should not be destroying lives for the sake of our own greed. Whilst the core claimed that this act was acceptable, as the alien species lacked the ability for conscious thought, leaked footage shows the contrary. This was the final nail in the coffin for the Imperator. Over the next 16 days, a number of peaceful demonstrations and protests took place, where the people expressed their mistrust over the government. They were demanding change. The government did not respond well to these protests, as shown by intercepted memos and communication between UEE officials and the police. On the first day, Unit B234 spotted an unauthorised gathering on the grid. Air support was drafted in, as was the army 5 hours later, to try to prevent widespread riots. There were unverified reports of the use of gas to de-escalate the situation. As things escalated into the second day of protests, Admiral Kale of the UEE High Command issued the lockdown of all systems, and all jump point traffic was halted in a desperate attempt to prevent anyone else joining these growing demonstrations. Any craft that refused to abide by the commands took the risk of being subject to lethal force. Despite the locking down of all systems and the seizing of comm relays, the High Advocate was informed that rebels continue to find ways to communicate through coded messaging within military communications. It was unclear exactly how they managed to do this, and it took some time to find a way to disrupt their access to these channels. Whilst the demonstrations continued to be peaceful yet assertive, on the 18th day of the demonstrations, flyers posted around the Crowshaw system suggested that the government's use of extreme violence had caused a change in approach for the rebels. Brothers and sisters, we have just learnt that 2 days ago, military and police forces opened fire, killing over 230 peaceful demonstrators on Vale. We have tried to be civil. We have resisted the urge to match the violence of this despotic government with violence, but now we say no more. We will no longer wage war with our ideas. We will rip the Imperator out of his throne. So strike out, brothers and sisters. Strike at the fiendish fist of your oppressor. And with that, the Imperator was overthrown, and the promise of an age of enlightenment and social consciousness lay ahead. We have awoken from a nightmare. Those were the words spoken by the new Imperator, Erin Toy, yesterday after announcing the capture of Imperator Messer the 11th. It's a brand new day indeed. Even at this news org, long and unofficial mouthpiece of the Imperator, we are finally able and encouraged to write the truth, without UEE censors looking over our shoulders. It's hard to believe looking back that the incident on Garan 2 would be the powder keg that brought it all down. Sure, this wasn't a singular catalyst. There were incidents that built up to it, from the bravery of Senator Akari to the activists who rallied all those years despite incarceration or death. Aside from instituting term limits for the Imperator, Toy worked with newly elected senators to restore the tribunal positions of old. The new High General, High Secretary, and High Advocate will work under the Imperator position, but with the power to disempower them should another despot attempt to seize control. We woke up. Though the day we're facing is unknown, we have seen how far we can fall, so we must make sure that every step we take is a step up. Toy was clear that the cruel act of corporate greed that occurred during the Mesa era and symbolised by the massacre of Garen II could never happen again. We had to learn from the past. In 2795, the Fair Chance Act was sanctioned. The principle of this act was that we must protect the well-being of others and allow planets with developing creatures a chance to evolve. Anyone seen to breach this act would face criminal charges. In an attempt to make amends for the hostilities of the past, at the dawn of the 29th century, newly elected Imperator Marshal Leon opened a new space within the Teac system, a neutral zone for all species to gather without fear of harm. It was known as the Ark. At the Ark's opening ceremony, Leon was joined by representatives of the Xi'an, Banu, and Tavarin, who all sought the chance to hear what this new sanctuary could offer. Notably, despite efforts being made to reach out, the Vanduul were not in attendance. Imperator Marshal Leon quietened the massive crowd and spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. That's a word that hasn't been associated much with humanity. We know over those dark centuries that we have been intolerant. We know that we have been distrusting. We have been cruel. But our civilization has a saying that goes back thousands of years. People change. And it's true. People can change. We can change because we have seen the error of our ways. We can change because we want to. Named after the biblical ship, we constructed this ark as a vessel for space and time. A place to learn about all races, those discovered and those yet undiscovered. A place not bound to a planet or a species, because placing it on a planet is to say it belongs to the species that inhabits it. No, the Ark must be about all of us. It must belong to all of us. We offer this Ark to the universe as a place to study and a place to meet. The Ark shall act as a political neutral zone where representatives can meet to resolve problems through discourse. I am proud to open these doors and beg all of you to fill it with the vast and colourful history that each and every species has to offer. Let this Ark stand as a testament and a proud record of the lives that we, and those before us, have all lived. We are on the threshold of progress. That was the mood this morning at the Senate when the Imperator made the announcement. The government finally unveiled Project Archangel, whispers of which have been drifting around the news circuits for weeks. In short, Project Archangel is a UEE-led initiative to literally build a planet from scratch. Humanity has finally come up with a solution that avoids the complicated moral minefield of terraforming. No longer will we have to convert pre-existing planets. Now, we can build them. Though the technology is not completed, scientists believe that they will be able to attempt building a prototype world within our lifetime. The implications of this achievement have reverberated through science, politics, and even the social spheres. Xi'an Emperor Cray even issued a statement.
It is very encouraging. My people will watch the project's development with great interest.
If perfected, the synth world would help erase the shame humanity has had to carry over 3 centuries of unbridled imperialism. The Imperator finished his speech by inviting any and all scientists from the Banu or Xi'an civilizations to witness the development firsthand. We don't want to keep this technology. The ability to build worlds should be free to any and all cultures, so there will never be a need to fight over something as trivial as land ever again. Construction began in the Kronos system. This would be a massive undertaking, requiring decades, perhaps centuries, to complete. There's something equally admirable and insane about the scientific mind. It is that need to question and revisit that has undoubtedly led to some of humanity's greatest achievements, but also led to such spectacular disasters. By all accounts, Russell Vallum was a wunderkind. Passing his equivalency at 12 years old, Vallum attended a handful of universities in Rhetor and completed a triple doctorate by the age of 24. Shortly thereafter, he received the illustrious Killian Quester Grant for his dissertation entitled Theoretical Applications of Antimatter Propulsion. The young Dr. Vallum believed that humanity had become complacent in their development ever since Nick Croshaw discovered the first jump point almost 700 years earlier. Simply because he had found a means for us to cross space didn't mean that we had conquered the vast and terrifying distances of the universe.
Dr. Valum said at the Science and Technology Summit in 2873. Jump points are an illusion of control. There is so much more out there for us to discover. Maybe an entire civilization could be closer to Earth than COGSoldier system. But we won't know because everyone's out there looking for jump points. Dr. Valum's passion was engines, specifically building an engine capable of travelling at speeds equal to or faster than the speed of light. With that, the universe would be truly open for exploration. Gone would be the choke points of jump points. Tirelessly collecting any and all data from scientists who had attempted similar endeavours over the centuries, Dr. Valum spent years sifting through the theories, formulas and schematics, convinced that somewhere in the vast troves of data lay the secret to unlocking absolute freedom. He even began to study controversial experiments in fringe technology performed during the height of the Mesa era. In late 2882, Dr. Valum resurfaced to organise a scientific symposium for some of the most celebrated scientific minds of the age. The finale of the event was advertised as an announcement that will change the direction of human expansion. An appropriate level of theatricality that had become synonymous with his presentations in the past, the scientist who emerged seemed different than the focused, passionate thinker who abandoned the spotlight almost a decade earlier. This new man was wild, argumentative, and even more headstrong. Dr. Valum revealed that through a list of private investors, including several Xi'an entrepreneurs and Banu traders, he had developed a prototype engine named Chariot that was capable of reaching speeds near or exceeding the speed of light. Paranoid to the extreme that other scientists would steal his tech, he had eschewed any field testing, opting for extensive simulation and laboratory tests instead, but claiming that his science was sound. He was going to give the universe the opportunity to see the engine at work live in its first field testing shortly after the Earth New Year. The scientific community and news orgs turned out in force on the 14th of January in 2884 to see Dr. Russell Valum's first display of the Chariot engine. He chose to stage his demonstration above Angeli in the COGSoldier system as a testament to the brilliance of Nick COGSoldier, as well as a condemnation of the shackles that his discovery bound onto humanity. Using a spacecraft of his own design, Dr. Valum prepared to fire the Chariot. He gave a final message to the crowd of onlookers. I leap forward to unveil the universe. Dr. Valum then activated the Chariot. The explosion nearly ruptured the observation station's hull, causing dozens of injuries to the scientists and journalists aboard. By the time everyone came to, there were only fragments of Dr. Valum's ship that had been completely incinerated. Celebrated satirist Lassie Hatwell, who was just starting his career as a journalist for the Terror Gazette, summed up the display with what would become his signature style of humour. While the scientific community and Spectrum representatives had probably turned up expecting a failure, there was a small part in all of us that was hoping for something monumental, he wrote on the day's events. On the bright side, Dr. Valum's engine and ship exploded faster than any ship I had ever seen before. In 2896, a mysterious ship had been eluding border patrols. It was agile. So agile that it became the bane of UEE pilots. At times, the ship looked like a spark flying through space, giving it the nickname Quark. Not much was known about this ship until a naval recon squadron happened upon an abandoned vessel. Keen to capitalise on the opportunity to gather much needed intel on these ships, they transported it to a classified bunker, where scientists would spend years interpreting the technology and components it contained. The ship was identified to be a Xi'an scout ship, the Ka-2. Specifically, it was a light attack craft for the Xi'an military. Contrary to human ship design, it was observed that the Ka-2 had no main thruster. Instead, featured an array of manoeuvring thrusters on articulated rigs, with its wide bubble cockpit, a unique type of gimbaled thrusters, and a silhouette that was like nothing on Earth. It was, to say the least, very different to many other ships. More recently, the Xi'an Corporation has begun to manufacture an export model, the Ka-2L. This model of the Ka-2 can be purchased by human civilians as a dedicated scout or explorer. The export model features the same Xi'an manoeuvring rig, but control surfaces modified for human use and a more limited armament.